Thank you. So the talk is about type tagless final interpreters and about bioinformatics, trying to be like a tutorial about how to do type tagless final interpreters in OCaml. We talk a bit about bioinformatics, but we don't need to actually know anything about it. So as Gershom said, I was there 2 years ago, so this is kind of a follow-up on the previous talk. So I'm Seb. I do software engineering and DevOps at the Hammer Lab, which is a science lab dedicated to cancer immunotherapy. And so I'm completely on the software side. I don't do any science. That's us. So yeah, I was here 2 years ago. I presented K-True, a workflow engine to run bioinformatics workflows. Bioinformatics involves running hundreds of tools that run for hours over noisy and badly formatted data. K-True, the goal is to attack that complexity with a nice API. I also presented BioKepi, which is so K-True is very general. I use it to run backups or do DevOps also. BioKepi is a library of K-True nodes. So K-True deals with a giant direct acyclic graph of nodes, which are the tasks. And so we call them nodes. And BioKepi is a particular library, it's an OCaml library of K-True nodes for bioinformatics. So since last time, we kept developing this. Now we use it on Google Cloud with the Google Container Engine, on AWS with AWS Batch and the container service. Also on Yarn, so the Hadoop clusters. All of this has gone pretty well. The thing has now a web UI built with JS of OCaml and TyXML.js and React, the OCaml React, not the Facebook one. All of this works pretty well, and it has grown. We are actually using it in an actual clinical trial. So people are being injected with drugs that have been kind of created with all of that. So if you follow, yeah, I forgot to say, this is my Twitter handle. I just tweeted the slides, so if you want to follow at home. So that's a screenshot of the web UI. That's interesting. So last time, I kind of finished the talk by presenting that GIDT definition of a very high-level embedded DSL to define bioinformatics workflows. And it was great because it's typed. It has much more static typing to the workflows that bioinformaticians write. And so that thing also has kept growing. So when I was to OCaml at ICFP 2015, the thing was already bigger. And I'm not sure you see, but I started replacing some tools in the bioinformatics pipelines by classes of tools because the GIDT was becoming too big to manage. The latest version looked like this. It kept growing and growing with new kinds of types. And but it also sometimes became the default way of dealing with the library. Everybody wanted to use that because you can write very concise and very readable pipelines that you describe the whole thing. That generates 3,000 nodes, 3,000 tasks on the K-True side that will run for 2 days and generate 2 terabytes of data. And then you can go and analyze the way you want. So that, and it's still pure OCaml. So you can use the IDE to ask for the types of things. And for example, if I ask Merlin for the type of somatic sniper, which is a bioinformatic tool, it will tell me that it takes a bunch of parameters that you need to read the documentation. But then it tells me that it takes those kinds of files. They go by 2, and it gives me another kind of file. So the fact of being inside OCaml as an embedded DSL gives us all the tools that come with OCaml itself. So that's pretty cool, but as I said, it's growing too much. So that pipeline.t type, it became too big. The compiler, became unreadable. That function that is 170 lines is just about 2 of the cases of the GIDT. I'm going to come back later at what's a GIDT, by the way. And it doesn't have a lot of fancy things that we would want in an embedded DSL, which is lambda, apply, or list functions. And the most important thing that made us look for something else is that it's not extensible. You have that very monolithic type in the library, and the users of the library cannot extend the EDSL. So if if they cannot extend it, if they want to have like one tool, they have to either like do a pull request to BioKP or have their own fork. So we wanted something extensible. And related to the extensibility and the fact that it doesn't have like proper lambda apply kind of things, optimization paces that we do on the language, on the AST, are like not really composable, and how to say, we have to like include them in the compiler. So that's why it becomes that huge unmaintainable thing. So what we really want is an EDSL that is typed like the previous one, so what we already have, but we want the users of the library to be able to extend the language and reuse everything that's already been done with their extension. And what I say by doing transformations by hand is mean like if the language allows you to like write functions, list.map and stuff like this, you can start like making your own pieces of workload that are reusable. So I tried a few things. OCaml now has extensible types. So in ML, you have the exceptions, and the exception is an extensible type. You can add new exceptions to that super type. In OCaml, those things have been generalized, and they can be JDTs. The thing is that you get some benefits, but you lose a lot of type safety because of the fact that the types you have everywhere to know that they are potentially extensible. And you end up with something that cannot really be extensible. And tried other things that didn't really work. So when you're looking for something very generic, well-typed, extensible, and all that kind of awesome, you always end up in that /FTP Oleg website. So of course, that problem is solved. This is Oleg. So Oleg answered on the mailing list for Camel in July 2015 about Kel. Kel is that research project that is building a query language for a database that compiles to SQL, but it's an actual lambda calculus with a language that you want to manipulate. It's an embedded DSL in OCaml that is extensible. And in the email, like Oleg says that we have made SQL composable. So that was like, wow. So since Kel has been like released, like in an actual repo with a license and everything, it has been in a paper at 2016. And at the same time, on the Oleg's website, you can find the course notes about how to do type tagless final encoders, which is what Kel is about. But the course is made in Haskell, so it makes like very nice examples between the LaTeX. But at the same time, it's like very unmodular. Like it's very difficult to follow because of all the hidden type classes, and there are a lot of them. But it's very well done, the class. Like I recommend following it. So what we did is like follow the course, use the OCaml version that we find in the Kel kind of proof of concept, and like make it into like our bioinformatics EDSL. So we did it, and that's the new default version of our EDSL. That's the screenshot of the documentation. So we made everything into a type tagless final interpreter EDSL. We have more constructs. We have lambda, apply, list, and pair functions. It's also easier to document because it's like OCaml module types. You have them only once. It's also easier to maintain because it's modular. You have like well-constrained, like you have a real separation of concerns, which is what modules are for. And most important, the users of the library can just extend it, and we actually do it. And that keeps going now. That's the new version that keeps adding new tools and new constructs to the language. So now the talk switches to tutorial mode. I'm going to get out of bioinformatics and just try to like explain how to do type tagless final interpreters in OCaml. And I'm going to like go back to JDTs to see the difference. And the JDTs are more familiar for more people because they are in Haskell and they are easier to manipulate because we have a good idea of what the AST is. So I'm going to like present a very simple example that fits in slides on JDT, translate it to TTFI, and then see how we can do the things we want to do with the embedded DSL on the TTFI side. So JDTs, so generalized abstract data types, algebraic data types, sorry, are like algebraic data types on which we can add type constraints in the output. So for example, I don't know if I should show on the slide. The int construct there takes an integer and inserts it in the EDSL, and we force the type of the actual term to be int t. We have two other constructs, true and false, that are actually bool t. So we are forcing the types to be different. And then our language has one function, which is equal, polymorphic equality, like OCaml, that takes two terms that have to have the same type and that provides a Boolean. So there we, on top of the type constraints, we also see some other thing of the JDTs is that you can have like these existential types, which means that you can hide type variables and just kind of remember what's important about them. So here we are in the equal, we like hide the code A, and we just know that the two are actually the same. So it's called existential, I think, because when you're matching on it, it tells you there exists a type. If you are in that match branch, there exists a type that is equal to the other one, and that's the only thing you know about it. So this is the example of the DSL. The eval function is just a recursive eval, but what's interesting with JDTs is that its type so type v dot is like for all v's in OCaml with a given name. For all v's, if you give me a term of vt, I will give you a v. So the return type of the function depends on the actual argument, and that's what JDTs bring you. So how to like actually implement it, it's easy. We just get out the integers or like transform to actual OCaml values, and we apply the OCaml polymorphic equality to like just keep recursing into our AST. Just test like this. We see that evaluating int 42 is a int t, and it evaluates to an actual integer. And evaluating an equal of a bunch of things evaluates to a bool t, and it's actually well typed with when you match with true. I don't know if I'm clear. If you have questions. So this is pretty cool. That allows to like make typed EDSLs. JDTs are used for many other things. Very commonly to like use the existentials to pack type parameters into something that doesn't have a type parameter because you want to put them all in the same list or some data structure. That can be useful. Actually building EDSLs, so we have that other project which is pretty fun, generating crazy POSIX compliant shell scripts from a very high level OCaml representation. It's life-saving. Tezos, which is that new blockchain implemented in OCaml, that new cryptocurrency with smart contracts. The smart contract is that very interesting but huge JDT definition. It's in that file if you go there. It's pretty impressive. We use JDTs also for different lists. So the printf function in OCaml takes a format, and the format gives all the other arguments of the function. You need a JDT to do that. Or like if you do web programming with Helium, the Helium services are a hidden JDT. You can use JDTs for session types. I haven't actually done anything useful with that yet. I'm really curious. OK, so let's switch the previous EDSL to what is actually type tagless final interpreters. So we're going to like do the same thing, adding type constraints and hiding type variables, but using module types. So a module type that people in the literature call semantics with a Y for syntax and semantics. As a given term type, which we call representation, that has a type parameter, and you use that type parameter to add the constraints. So int takes an int and provides a representation of an int. T and F are true and false. They give you like a Boolean term. And equal is defined exactly the same way as the as in the JDT. It's just that you are just defining an interface. You're just defining a module type. Once you have that module type, a compiler is just a module that implements the module type. So evaluating in OCaml something like this is just providing a module that implements the module type, and it is just gives you, like, in that case in OCaml, we just say that the representation is actually the value in OCaml. So we just say that int I is I, true is true, and equal is just calling equal. And then a program in the language. A program is a functor, so OCaml functors, no category theory. It's a functor that takes the EDSL definition, which is just a module type, does whatever it wants with it, and provides whatever it wants. So here I provide two examples. We are two terms in the language using the EDSL. Compiling the example to OCaml is just applying the functor. So that's what we have here. Compile example is the functor examples applied to the eval OCaml compiler. We see that we have the same nice property, like x1 was int rep, so we can, like, type checks well with 42. And example 2 is a Boolean, and we can, like, so we get the same thing as here. So there you realize that you have been doing type tagless final interpreters since you ever started using functors. Like, it's just like writing a functor against an API and then providing that functor with a given implementation of the API. So that's why it's so simple, is that in the end, you're just doing that forever. But it has more things to it. So TTFI, as we have seen, is a definition of the language, so a module type. A program is a functor from that module type to whatever you want. A compiler is just implementing the semantics of the language, so the module type. But then it gets funnier. So you can actually transform the EST. So a transformation on the EST is going to be a functor from the module type to the module type. So it's like something you can add in the compiling chain that transforms the language. And we're going to see also an optimization framework, which is like reusing JDTs to provide an extensible optimization functor. So little bit more thing that's in the papers and in Kel and everything. It's called observations. When you start using them, you don't understand why they are there, and in the end, they show up as important. So I'm going just to add them now. An observation in the semantics is your type that it's only in the output. So you have an observe function for any, in that case, lazy term of the language that gives you something that's only on the output side of the functions. We will see just later why it arises and why it's useful. And to follow the tests and the examples, let's build another compiler that is more like visual. So the compiler that compiles the EDSL to a string that shows what the AST looks like. So in integer is just replacing calling string of int. T is true, like the string true, and a false. And equal is just like building that equal thing with the two subterms. So we have that compiler to strings. Let's add more examples that actually use the observe that we have seen before. So observe can be seen like an export, like I want to get out of the ESL. So example 1 is the same as before, but with the observe inside. And example 2 also the same with that way of getting out that we are going to see just later. So if we compile our examples, the new ones, to strings, so we just have to apply the functor to the eval string compiler. We get that output, so 42 is 42, and we have just drawn the AST of our EDSL programs. So a first optimization, or like program transformation, as I said, has to be like a functor that transforms the AST into It transforms the semantics into another functor that still provides the same semantics. So the nice thing with OCaml modules is that you can like include them. They can include each other. They can override. You can override functions, and they can use subtyping at the module type level. So that's where the magic happens. So, but this one is still very simple. It's like a dumb optimization that replaces the term true by true equal true. So it's the contrary of an optimization. It just makes things bigger. But it's a first example that, so it's a functor. It takes as input the semantics of the language, and as output, it gives again the semantics of the language, and it passes by the observations. We just take the same input. We say the same EDSL, the same terms, the same implementation that's coming from the compiler, but we just override the true value as true is equal of true and true. We can just test it with a string compiler. So we put the functor from semantics to semantics the only place it fits, so between the compiler and the examples. And we see that the true equals true has been transformed into true equals true equals true equals true. So we have done one AST transformation pass in our EDSL. So that looks fun, but it looks also useless because we don't want the AST to grow like this. What we really want is to be able to match terms. We want to so go back to the JDTs. We have our AST we saw before, and what we want to do is replace the true equal true by true. We want to go the other way around. So when we have an AST, like a value AST as a JDT, we can intercept the compiler and say that, oh, if the expression looks like this, do something different, and in that case, replace it with true. So we want to be able to do that with our EDSLs. That's the interesting part of transforming ASTs. The example just shows that the function works. But we want to do that. We want to intercept, if we were pattern matching, intercept the AST and replace things that look the way we want, that look interesting. So that's where it gets really fun. We build, so that's a very reusable optimization framework. And it's difficult to explain because it comes from many things at once. But it's a functor that takes a transformation that the user is going to define, and then provides an optimization pass. So modules are queried. So the first argument is that transformation, and then it's a functor from semantics to semantics. The functor just takes the transformation, and the transformation is a way of intercepting. So the type quote A from is what comes from the previous compiler or the previous optimization pass, and the type term is the one you actually want to inspect. And then you provide two functions, one to get in and one to get out, so forward, backward. And then the generic optimizer is just going to use that X, the transformation, and just pass everything into the transformation. So it implements the semantics just by calling forward and backward to get the right types, to get the types right. It does nothing. It's just passing everything to the transformation that has been given. Where the observation thing becomes important is that we don't do that for the observe function. The observe function just gets the output out. It doesn't put the observe back into the transformation. That's where observations become important, and if you don't put them, that's where you end up failing. So how do we use that? So we want to match on equal true and give true instead of that. We just want to compress that AST. And we use JDTs there to build a term that just cares about what we're interested in. So our term is unknown, so it takes whatever it gets and builds a term, or equal and true, that are the equal and true that have just the same type as the terms in the semantics. But where it becomes interesting, so when forward means like putting inside. So when we put inside, by default, it's just we put into a known. And getting out, that's where it's important. That's where it's useful. Like we have that piece of AST that just the part that it's interesting, and we can match on it, and then do whatever we want with it. So in that case, compress the AST to like just true. What else? So that's the transformation we define for the generic optimizer. We also have to define a language delta, so how to like capture equal and true. So it's just building the functions that have the right type signature as the semantics that actually put them in the right bins, the right subterm. Then we just include the generic optimizer, which is going to like create all those default values using forward and backward. And then we add our language delta, so we override equal and true to like capture our piece of AST that's interesting for this optimization pass. And for like some kind of magic, it just works. So here are like the same examples as before, applied to string or applied to that optimization pass over after, and then the string compiler. And we see that it has worked, like the true equal true has been transformed into true. And the nice thing is that that optimizer just cares about that part of the language that it's important for it. It's not like going through all the language. It just, everything that it doesn't care about goes into unknown. Yeah, so all of this was very fun. Our main goal was to make extensible DSLs. So let's add an extension to our stupid EDSL. And let's add lambda and apply, which is what we all care about. Lambda takes a OCaml function between terms and like lifts it to the EDSL. And apply applies a function of the EDSL to a term of the EDSL and like gives you the result. And that's where, again, the magic of include and the module subtyping just works. The new compiler for strings has just to like include the previous compiler and add the functions that are like new. It can also use the previous ones if needed. Some examples using lambda and apply. So we can see that we can use an OCaml function, and I should have written types, it would have been easier. Here we lift a function into a term of the language, L1, and x1 is observing it, and x2 is observing it applied to true equal true, because we're going to optimize it later. Just saying, of course, still everything there is type checked, because we like piggyback on OCaml's type checking, even inside the functions, since they are OCaml functions. And here are the examples compiled. So lambda to string, so it creates fake variable names. There are ways of doing better that, but didn't want to make too long of slides. And that's where it gets really crazy. You can also piggyback on the previous optimizations. And by just reusing the generic optimizer and including the new and appending the new functions to the generic optimizer. So you get a new generic optimizer for your new extended DSL. And you can just reuse everything. So the true optimization with the new extension of the language, the lambdas, is just getting the previous one, applying its transformation to the generic optimizer, the new one we just created, and then again, adding the language delta to capture the pieces of AST. And again, the examples show that it just works. So now the module application becomes like a very long line, but we see that the true has been transformed into true. So we have built that completely separate extension of the embedded DSL, adding more functions that have like pretty complex types, and just reuse the previous compilers and like extend them with the new constructs. So questions before I go back to bioinformatics? Okay, so in BioKP we have completely replaced the JDT version. I mean, it's still there for like in case somebody has a piece of code that uses it, but everything now is based on that TTFI EDSL. We compile it to K3 workflows, so actual like computational workflows that are going to run for days and actually do something. We also provide for every file created by the workflows. Now we have like a JSON provenance proof that says everything that happened to get to that file. That's useful for like reproducible science. Also, we like make a like display-friendly dot graphics graphs that I'm going to show you after. In our case, the optimizations are not that useful because the K3 workflows already like are going to merge things that are equivalent and stuff like this. So in the end, the optimizations, we have like applying all the lambdas and list.maps to their lambdas, but we use it only for display in the end. So for example, that's a dot graph generated for a very pretty small pipeline. But we see that it uses map list on a list and then a lambda that has a variable. So when you're a bioinformatician and you're like inspecting your workflow, you don't want to see that because you don't want to think of lambdas and applying functions to list the map. So we have an optimization path that applies all the lambdas that it finds and inside the applies and inside the list.maps and also the pairs and everything. And so it builds that other AST, which is completely equivalent, but that somebody who's actually reading what's happening, it makes more sense. Like the function has been applied to all the lists, and it's more like what people want to read when they like want to inspect what's going to happen to their data. Minutes. So Epidisco. Epidisco is one big family of pipelines using BioKepi that has been also turned into using the TTFI EDSL. So that's one typical run with some options. That's the actual dot graph that it makes. And it uses the extensions of the EDSL because Epidisco is like made for that clinical trial, and other people use it also for like other analysis. And there are like terms of the language that BioKepi doesn't care about. So there's like a custom construct in the new EDSL, the extended one, to build a HTML report of the whole pipeline of everything that happened. Also like saving important files, intermediary files to another directory and saving their JSON and everything, just because we want to, at the end, to have a nice self-contained directory. Something I didn't add, the pipeline also like as a new construct to just send emails from some intermediary results when they're done, because part of the pipeline is actually just doing quality analysis. And you don't care if the pipeline is finished. Once the quality analysis is finished, you want an email that tells you what it is. Because if not, you can just stop everything if the quality is bad. So we have also like a new construct that sends emails to the user. That's a zoom just on the last part of the pipeline. So it's pretty complicated. And every little box can be like up to like 100 K3 nodes, because it can be like parallelizing the computation over the data. It can be installing the software. It can be like getting auxiliary data, like the actual reference genome, or like different databases that we have of mutations and stuff like this. So every little box is like a lot of computation, but that's the ones that the people want to see. We also like, I don't know if I want to like describe this. Like we found bugs and like weird behaviors like in bioinformatics tools, and how to like bypass those problems and still build those hacks into our pipeline while still being somewhat readable. And that diff is like pretty impressive. When Isaac, who's there, did that, we were like, wow, that actually we can read that huge hack, which is like passing some of the data through one part of the pipeline and some other one in some other part, because that part was broken for some kind of data. And it's just tools that we have to use because that are scientific literature. We don't control them. And that's interesting to be able to like hack around all the problems. Limitations, yeah, 10 minutes. So it's all module types, functors, and functors of functors that produce functors. It can be pretty scary for beginners. And it's also like quite verbose on the application of the functor side. Not that verbose, but a bit annoying. That Pierre I linked is actually a beginner in OCaml coming from data analysis who wanted to add a new tool to the DSL in BioCopy. And just by following type errors from the compiler, got something pretty good just at the first try that compiled. Because following the EDSL, looking at everything that has already been done and just doing the same thing and making the types work, you get to something pretty good, even if you don't know OCaml or don't even really understand functors. That quote A representation type, we can put whatever we want in quote A, but we cannot use types that we cannot use subtyping from OCaml because the optimization framework in the middle uses a JDT, and the JDTs in OCaml, they cut the variance. You cannot be covariant or contravariant. So it makes that in the EDSL we cannot use subtyping that will be sometimes making sense. And since the optimization framework for us is not that useful, it's just for display, we are like, okay, do we ditch the optimization framework or do we ditch subtyping? So far we have ditched subtyping, but we may change our minds at some point. And the magic of include and the subtyping of modules, it's nice with values, but in OCaml you cannot, inside the same module, have twice the same type with the same name, or twice the same submodule. So you end up with an API that is a bit flat. Like instead of having list.map, you have list_map, and the same for the pairs and stuff like this. You are not going to build a module hierarchy inside your EDSL because you are going to hit a problem at some point. That's all. Any questions? Yeah, everything is open source.
And is it possible to use it without OCaml?
With the command line, you won't get far. You won't really use what's interesting about it. You can do you generate workflows with an OCaml API. The workflows in the end end up being just a pile of JSON, but you could generate that pile of JSON from something else. But so far, the only API we have is OCaml.
How embedded is the EDSL sort of that generic part? Is that part of BioCopy or is that a separate project?
So the DDFI is just part of BioCopy, and you can actually use BioCopy without it. All the tools are also available at a lower level, but you have to deal with more complex things like passing how to compute things, and the EDSL gives you a very high level, nice view of your pipeline. That's why in the end people ended up using it everywhere. At the beginning it was just an experiment.
The jobs that you're running the workflow, can they be any kind of language as well, or is it?
Then it's just running shell scripts on a cluster. It depends on your backend. But if your backend is like Hadoop, you have more constraints, like using a jar or something. But most jobs we run there are like shell scripts constructed by a program.
So part of the talk is about how you can use this approach in place of JDTs to make things more extensible. And then to write the generic optimizer, however, you use the JDT within it.
So the JDT has the nice thing of just having that unknown case. So the JDT only works with the part of the AST that's interesting. So it's still extensible. That's why the extension works.
But you couldn't have done the same thing using this approach again within, not using JDT at all.
No JDT at all. You break the nice thing about the optimization framework. It is able of passing those type constraints.